Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. And we've got in the co-captain's chairs, as always, from Scotland, Mr. Steven Reid, and from Lancashire, Mr. Simon Bray. I noticed today we're configured a little bit differently. Simon's usually down below when I'm looking into the Zoom, and Steven's up top. I don't know.
It's normal to me, but then again, what is normal to me?
Well, let me tell you, there is nothing normal in my world this week for whatever reason. So again, I apologize to everybody who's been kind of following me in the channel this week. I'm in the middle of one of the worst allergy seasons I've ever had in my life, and I sound like shit. I look like shit, but we're going to persevere here today. So I want to thank Simon and Steven for kind of hanging with me on this episode. But you may hear some coughing, you may hear a sneeze or two, you may hear me sniffling. That's about as good as I can do. So we're going to dive back into concert experiences this week, and we're going to look at some notable shows that we've seen in the years 2000, 2001, 2, 3, and 4. So the beginning of the 2000s, right? So we're going back into the ticket stub book that I know two of the three of us have. So I am not partaking today. So before we get started, do either one of you want to share a beverage of choice? Because my beverage of choice has just been water all week, and there ain't nothing else going down the gullet this week.
On you go, Simon.
Yeah, I'm just reaching into stuff that I need to get rid of before I go away this week. I've got a hobgoblin this week. I had a king goblin the other week. Yeah, so very nice.
I am a fan. We get that here too.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to pour it like a professional under the thing, and it will miraculously appear looking absolutely perfect very shortly.
Just to let everyone in on the technical secrets, Simon already has one poured down below. There we go. So
Simon's never that organized.
I have a Tom Morris, a Scotch ale from the St Andrews Brewery is what I have. This has been recommended by a friend. I've obviously pre-poured it already. I don't usually do tins. I don't usually do beer in a tins. I prefer a bottle. So it's already glassed. I've already poured, but I've already poured because it's quite a small tin, so I do have a backup. I've got the Chippy Stout, also from the St Andrews, and I thought it was a chippy, as in, for anyone from Scotland, the chippy, as in you get your fish and chips from the chippy. But with a picture of the golfer Paul Lawrie up here, I presume that it means chipping the ball up in the air. But either way, we'll find out if it's any good or not.
There you go. Very cool. You know,
I would point out. Sorry, I had a liquid lunch, so I'm reining it in today.
And I remember those days.
Hey, it's holidays.
So you're telling me that I've got one co-host here who is under the weather, and one who's under the weather.
I guess you're carrying the show, my friend. You know, the sad thing is, I actually went and bought new beer for this particular episode this week, and I can't even drink it. That's okay. We'll hold on to it for till next time. What are you going to do? Because I know some people in the comments got on my case last week because I brought out a repeat from the episode before. And I'm like, Pete, you got to get your beer game going here. And I'm like, so I will take care of that. And just so everybody knows, you don't usually see me in this setting here. I mean, you see me in this setting, but not for whatever reason with what I got. And I was just telling the guys this before we started taping that when I'm lying down or sitting down, I'm completely congested. But when I'm standing up and kind of moving around a little bit, it clears up a bit. So I decided to raise the desk because I have one of those cool, these things. So I decided to raise up the desk today and attempt this while standing up. So that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? Today I'm going to go first because I'm going to be very quick in everything I say today because my voice is not all here and I sound like shit anyway. So 2000. I've got two notable ones, but I'm going to mention them both real quick. The first one was Monday, January 17th at Irving Plaza in New York City. My second time ever seeing a guy named Fesh.
Oh, very good.
And that was the Sunset on Empire tour. When he had all the female singers with him. Was it two? I don't even remember. He had a couple singers with him. He didn't sound great.
On that tour.
Yeah, the set list was amazing though. Because that's a really good album. So there was that, and then literally like a month later, I saw at Roseland Ballroom in New York City. I saw Dream Theater on the Metropolis 2 Scenes from a Memory tour, and in the audience walking around was none other than Chris Jericho, WWE wrestler and lead singer of Fozzy. So I got his autograph during the show. So I saw lots more in 2000, but those are probably the highlights, I guess. Yeah. So on to Steven.
Oh, see, I haven't been that organized, Peter. I've not just done some from each year, so I'll just delve in and just. Do you want me to do all of mine just now, or what do we want to do?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it. That's fine. We can
whatever we do.
Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll do the ones where I can go, yay, and I'll leave the ones where I go, for later. There we go. How does that sound? So I'm going to start in 2001, and I'm at a venue I've complained about, but obviously I've spent half my life there. So the Glasgow Garage, and this was to see the Silver Ginger 5. Okay, so I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I quite like Ginger Wildheart. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. No? Maybe I should have mentioned I'm quite a fan of him and his various projects, just for anyone that's not paying attention. This was one of his, the Wildhearts don't exist, who knows if they exist, projects. It included himself, Random John Poole on bass, who's also been part of the Wildhearts, but also part of the Cardiacs. A guy called Thomas Broman on drums. I don't know much about Thomas Broman, but it also had Connie Bloom from the Electric Boys on guitar. And this is my favourite non-Wildhearts project, probably from all of the members. This was just a phenomenal band. They did one album called The Black Leather Mojo, which is released in a variety of configurations. And it was phenomenal. The album's brilliant. The show was fantastic. So, of course, with it being Ginger Wildheart related, it didn't last because that's the way that it works. And also on the bill was a band called The Jellies, which was CJ Wildheart's band at the time. And we also had Stiddy on drums, who was also part of the Wildhearts. So it was like a little mini reunion.
I was going to say, keeping it all in the family, right? Jeez.
So why they didn't just play as the Wildhearts, I don't really know. But there you go. Although that configuration, those four probably never played together. Maybe did. Actually, they maybe did, to be fair. But there we go. It was absolutely fantastic. Glad I witnessed it because they've always maintained that they've got a second album written, never had the time to do it. So at least I got to see them in some shape or form. So that's my first one. From there, I go basically along the road to the Glasgow Barrowlands, to Tuesday the 5th of February, to the Hives. I don't know if anybody likes the Hives or knows of the Hives. There we go. They're great luck, Simon, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. I've seen them one, and basically them going, "We're the Hives, your favorite new band. Bye." So,
okay.
I said twice, but yeah.
Is it the song "Hate to Say I Told You So" that's got that stop? And then they start again.
That's the one, yeah.
That's what they do. And man, oh man, do they hold that pose for such a long time. The arrogance and the belief to do that, but the whole place just went wild as they did it. They are just, I mean, it's good fun punk and roll from Sweden with its tongue firmly in its cheek. Really pompous, but all done in a very friendly, laughable kind of manner. Live, they're fantastic. I like the albums as well, but live, they're outstanding good.
What date was that? The 5th?
That was the 5th of February.
Oh my God, just 4 days later, the Hives saw me.
Well, they did actually mention from stage that they were coming to see you especially.
There you go. Yes, indeed.
Gotta love those Swedes, right? Gotta love those Swedes. They take care of us sea tranquilly folk, don't they?
Do you remember who one of the support acts were?
I'm genuinely not sure which time this was. I know I saw them with a band called Nebula, who were fucking awful. Really, the Hives were on first, and that's on one of the occasions, and that's time where I actually good because we got lost on the way to the academy because my friend, who will get a mention later, fucking know it all, thought he knew where he was going, and he didn't, and he sent me into a shop in in part of Manchester that wasn't as nice as it is now, ask, can you guide us towards the venue? And I'm absolutely shitting myself. Nebula.
The other band, the one that I'm thinking of, they were called Randy.
I do not recall them.
It just stuck in my head because they obviously used the immortal line, "Hello, we are Randy, and we're from Sweden." Which, if nothing else, was a good reason to call the band Randy. But there you go. They were also quite good, to be fair. So, same year, a month later, the 7th of March, and we've got Magnum. This was the first time I'd seen Magnum. I didn't see them prior to Hard Rain. Don't know why. It's one of those things that when I came to think about it today, I thought, why was that the first time I saw them? The honest answer is probably because none of my mates really liked them very much. They all knew them and didn't mind them, but there was nobody else I would say, "Oh, well, we'll go see Magnum." And they would all go, "Oh yeah." So probably the first time I saw them was then for that reason. I'd seen them as Hard Rain not long before, but they were just phenomenal when they came back as the band that they should always have been, And at that point, and as Peter knows, I am a fan of both eras. I'm a fan of pre-Hard Rain and post-Hard Rain. But a set list that's got things like Vigilante, Backstreet Kid, Le Mordant Song, How Far Jerusalem, The Spirit, Days of No Trust, Rocking Chair, Kingdom of Madness, Just Like an Arrow, and Sacred Hour. And I'm still missing a few of the highlights in there. And I do love both eras of the band. I do wish they'd play a little bit more of that era these days too, and mix it up a bit. They do highlight the new stuff, and I'm all for that because it's really, really good. Yeah. But every now and again, more than one or two of the older ones would be nice. But they were fantastic, and the lineup was brilliant at that stage. It was obviously Bob, our friend Catley, on vocals, Tony the Hat Clarkin, because he was still, well, he probably wasn't pretending he wasn't bald at that stage, to be fair. Mark Stanway still on keyboards before he stomped out. Harry James from Thunder on drums, and Al Barrow, who's still part of the organisation, but not on bass these days, on bass. And they were just brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. Best I've seen them. And they were hungry.
How many times have you both seen Magnum? Just out of curiosity.
I've seen Magnum, I think, 3 times.
Okay.
I've seen them a massive once.
Wow, okay. I would have thought you both would have seen them more. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As you can guess how many times I've seen them, right?
None. Yeah.
They don't come here. Yeah.
That's logistics, unfortunately, isn't it? Really, it's not going to pay their way to come over, unfortunately, these days. No. Yeah, I mean, they do tour, or they did tour prior to Nonsense, basically every year, I think. And it's one of those things that it's a terrible thing to say, that because you think, oh, well, they'll be back next year, you think, I'll go to that one instead, I'll go see this band instead. And you do find that you've gone 4 or 5 years and you think, well, actually, we haven't seen them in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Do you know? And another interesting thing, or is to me anyway, as I've gone through this, is I've realised I've seen the Wild Hearts, and it was actually putting in the Silver Ginger 5 show that made me think about it. I don't know how many times. Loads and loads. And I've seen Marillion 10, 15, 20 times. I really don't know. I could count, Simon. Yes, I can go to the list. I could count. I should know. I've let you down. And I've never raised either of these two in the lists, because when you see a band so many times, you start to think, was that this one or was that one? What happened this time and what was that? What was the set list that night? Let's just take it as read that they deserve to be on one of these lists, and they just haven't been, because I tend to pick out things like Cheap Trick, because I've only seen them once. So it sticks in the mind, you know, and that it's not fair on the other bands I love. So this was 2002 again, 22nd of April, really purple patch going on here. And yeah, one only time I've seen them, they were everything I wanted them to be. They were loud, they were aggressive, they were in your face, they were melodic as hell, they were tight as a tight thing, just fantastic. Rick Nielsen was every bit the Cardigan geek that I wanted him to be. Do you know, Robin Zander was just, he was tearing the place apart and he was singing your love songs. What more can you ask for? And back at that stage, I'm pleased to say it was still Bun E. Carlos on drums. And the guy is so much to do with that band for my money that at least the time I saw them was with him on drums. And obviously Tom Peterson on bass, who was just the most unassuming back of the stage, archetypal, I'm not really here bassist, but without him, it's not the same as well. So yeah, Cheap Trick, they were outstandingly good, and I would go see them at the drop of a hat. I have to say. Really good. Or a drop of Rick Nelson's cap. There you go. I've mentioned, probably can't even read that. It's a bad ticket. Huey Lewis in the news.
Wow.
There you go. Not exactly SOT normal kind of fare. Man, oh man, that was absolutely brilliant. I've got a real soft spot for Huey Lewis and that kind of middle of the road schmaltzy blues with a bit of R&B and pop and really not doing anything that's all that exciting, and it just clicks and it just works. And he is one of the most charismatic men that I've ever seen on stage. He just came out and it was like he was 15 foot tall. You couldn't take your eyes off him. He was so entertaining. He was just so, you know, you wanted to be his friend from the moment that he set foot on the stage, and he just ticked every box. He was utterly phenomenal. Steph Burns, who I'd seen, or maybe not seen, but knew from Y&T, was on guitars. The band were outstanding. They just played the greatest hits set. I don't think he's ever come back since, and it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I will say one of the best greatest hits collections I think I have in my music collection is a Huey Lewis in the News. Yeah, that's because it's got every song you want on it. And yeah, I like the hits. That's one of those bands for me. Again, I haven't heard all their albums, but that's like one of those bands. It's like, all right, as long as I got all the hits, that's all I need. So
they're an interesting band in the sense that if you've got the greatest hits album, then arguably you've got everything you need. But if you then go and buy the catalogue, you discover they're a different band entirely. Much more serious, much more authentic. Because I mean, I love the hits, and I can sing them all badly, but I can sing them all. But realistically, there's an awful lot of just middle of the road pop songs in there with a bit of a rocked up sheen. The albums have much more depth, and they're rewarding in a completely different way. And I love both. Sometimes I will just go for the hits, and sometimes I think, no, actually, I want to hear them do some much more traditional kind of stuff. And the longer they've gone, well, actually the early stuff too, is much more kind of rootsy and bluesy and much more depth to it, for want of a better term of phrase.
Yeah.
So there you go. So jump forward to 2004. And I've got Peter Gabriel here. Okay, this is the first time that I saw Peter Gabriel on my birthday in 2004. There you go, 5th of June 2004. And that was the one where they were out with the phenomenal stage set, middle of the auditorium. So it was, you know, in the round, as we used to say for Def Leppard when they did all this kind of stuff, with the rotating strip on the stage. So it wasn't the whole stage that rotated, it was just a strip round the edge. So Tony Levin could stand looking, posing, and then walk on the spot, but go nowhere, which was really quite impressive. It just didn't make any sense, but was really very cool. And it was just a show. I mean, the show was outstanding. That was the one that had, I think you call it a Zorb. Is it a Zorb? These big inflatable ball things that you can get inside and you can kind of push yourself about in them. Well, yeah, we had Peter Gabriel above our head at one point in one of those.
That's pretty cool.
Quite cool. They sang the song Downside Up, and him, and I think it's actually his daughter that was on backing vocals at that stage. Maybe wrong with that. They ended up on the lighting rig, which was obviously round and above the stage, upside down, walking round as they were singing Downside Up. There was this humongous ball that just appeared out of the middle of the lighting rig that was turned into the world. It was into a globe that was all lit up. And I mean, the production values were just off the scale. But then you add in all the hits that you wanted to hear, a few deeper cuts, a band that are just such great musicians. And that's one that's really stuck with me. It has really stuck. That was an event. It wasn't just a gig that I was at that night. That was an event. We all kind of, I mean, we went and bought the DVD of the tour, and it really represents the show that we saw. You know, sometimes you go and buy a DVD of a tour you've been on and you think, oh, wow, they pulled out all the stops for the DVD. We didn't get this and we didn't get that. And, oh, we didn't have that lighting rig and you didn't get those explosions. But we got everything that's on the DVD. And it was just out of this world. Absolutely out of this world. And then from one end of the spectrum, ginormous show, huge production values, right to the other end of the spectrum. And we're on the 5th of October, 2004. And this was the first time that I saw Saxon.
Wow.
Okay, and this is in a little venue that I've mentioned before, which has got the best venue name in the world. We saw them in King Tut's Wah Wah Hut. And King Tut's Wah Wah Hut is a band that that's a venue that if you're a band that is on the rise, you're a local outfit, you'll play King Tut's at some point. It's a kind of rite of passage venue. And I saw Saxon play there, which is just, I mean, it makes no sense to me at all. The next time I saw them, they were in a venue literally 4 times the size of that, and it was full. So why, at that point, why is it only a few years between that a band's status can go from what is really genuinely, and it is a proper venue, and it is a decent size, and it holds 300 people. That's all, folks, 300 people. But it's the back room of a pub. You do have to walk through the pub to go through the door, up the stairs to your right. There's the stage behind you. I mean, that's what Saxon were playing. This is the same band that at roughly the same point were headlining Wacken Open Air.
Yeah, I was like thinking because not much changed for them over those couple of years. So maybe it's just they just had an extra date to fill, and they were like, "All right, we'll play."
Here in the UK in 2004, Saxon couldn't get arrested.
Really? Wow.
Stop, get out. No, you're okay. Keep going. That's the way that it was at that point for them. The strong arm of the law wasn't interested in them at that point. It was really, who are you? And I remember, and it's funny because I went to check, because I do actually go and check things, Setlist FM, to make sure I'd got this right in my head. Somebody that was maybe else there or was at a different date on the tour can correct me, because I am absolutely positive that they played the song Solid Ball of Rock from the Solid Ball of Rock album. And when Biff announced it, the place went wild. And you could see him, they were looking at each other going, the people in Scotland know this song? And that was really where their status was in the UK at that point. They ended up doing some documentary on Channel 4 with, I can't remember the promoter's name. I can't remember, that's terrible. He used to promote all the big shows in the UK. And the whole premise of the show was that he would go and find an act or an artist or something, and he would revive their career. And a lot of people...
Was it Harvey Goldsmith?
Yes, that's exactly who it was. And he was really unkind to them, called them pedestrian when they played live. They were not pedestrian when they played live. He said that the music was boring, and they remixed a single, which was really no more exciting than the standard mix of the single. And the press suddenly put Saxon's rebirth in the UK down to this Channel 4 documentary. It may have played a part, I don't know, because maybe there were people out there that genuinely didn't know that Saxon were still a thing at this stage. But they were just phenomenal. And to see a band like that, as I say, who are playing in front of tens of thousands of people in a huge open air venue and headlining it with massive eagle light rigs behind them and various things, to see them in a venue that is basically the back room of a pub was just bonkers. But they were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And it delights me no end that they do come back now and sell out decent sized venues again these days. And it's something that's always fascinated me as a band or a promoter or a manager. How do you know where to pitch where your band's at? How do you know whether you want to play King Tut's Wah Wah Hut or whether you're going to play the ABC in Glasgow, which is 4 times the size of it? It's a dark art that I've just never understood. I mean, it was sold out. Could they have played somewhere bigger? Arguably, yes, but they didn't. They didn't upscale it or anything like that. But
it's funny though. When you look back, I'm looking at like their discography right now. So in 2004, they released Lionheart, which I know here was the first time in a lot of years that people in the States were like, oh, Saxon's still around? That's a pretty good album. But you look at everything that came before it, and Lionheart did not chart in the UK, but everything after it did once again. But before that, you had Killing Ground, Metalhead, Unleash the Beast, Dogs of War, Forever Free, and Solid Ball of Rock going all the way back to 1990. Not one of those albums charted in the UK.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. That's like 14 years of like not much going on.
I would go as far as to say there was a period, and that's the period, obviously, really coming off the back of, and we're going to do a Saxon show at some point very soon, but coming off the back of those more melodic rock years, Saxon in the UK rock and metal press were a bit of a laughing stock. Not deservedly so, definitely not in my opinion anyway, but they really were one of those. It was at that point where older bands, dinosaur rock, whatever you want to call it, couldn't get any sort of sensible coverage in the UK at all. It was all
90s, right?
Yeah. Kerrang was all filled with, well, as it is now, it was a teenagers magazine. I mean, it was a teenagers magazine when I was buying it, I suppose. So it moved with the times. We grew up in it, and it just found a new audience, I suppose. But these bands just were sneered at more than anything else. And they played Dogs of War, they played Forever Free, they played Solid Ball of Rock, they played In the Court of the Crimson King, the cover version from Lionheart. I mean, you don't cover King Crimson. Oh, you do if you're Saxon. It's fantastic. It's so good. And it was a highlight of the set, even though the set was outstandingly good from start to finish. And it was one of those songs you think, Saxon can't do that. Oh, yes, they can. Yes, they can. And the banter with Biff in a venue of that size was just ridiculously good. He did that usual stuff where you go backwards and forwards. Oh, we were in Manchester last night. And everyone goes, boo. They were so loud. You'll never be as loud as Manchester. Boo. We were in Newcastle the night before that. They were even louder. Boo. Then he goes, oh, we were in Belgium before that. And he goes, boo. And he goes, whoa, there's fuck all wrong with Belgium. Everywhere else was fair game, but you don't boo Belgium for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, that's one of the ones that will live along with me. Seeing Saxon in a tiny little room that they just should never have been in at that stage of their career was a genuine privilege, I have to say. So there you go. That's the yay from me. There are some that are not so yay that I'll cover in a bit.
All right, Simon, what do you got?
Oh, are we doing yays?
You can do yays if you want, yeah.
Okay, and are we going to do another You've Seen Who?
We might.
Oh, well, we could do.
Excellent. Then I'm going to miss some things out and hold fire on that one.
Okay.
Right. So, hey, do you know how I've always said that I keep my tickets in the CDs of the tour and shit?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Yeah. Only for a couple. I can't fathom out where some of them are. But however, on Thursday, the 25th of May, 2000, touring what I consider to be one of the greatest albums of all time, Life Will Kill You by Warren Zevon. Guess who I saw? That's right, Nils Lofgren. No, I saw Warren Zevon. Yeah, and I've got 2 tickets. Yeah, aren't they shit?
Wow.
Tickets. One for me, one for our Benjamin, because this was a golden period for me of going for gigs, because our Benjamin became of the age where he liked shit and I like vaguely similar shit, and we could go and see them together. I did not, nice. And I have to say this in public, I did not go to Eminem. That did not happen. And that's actually not completely true. I did not go. I dropped him off outside.
That'll do. Good.
Didn't go. However, did see Warren Zevon in a tiny little part of the Lowry in Manchester. It's the only time I've ever seen music at the Lowry. Seen other stuff at the Lowry, and let's just say it wasn't exactly packed. However,
how big is that place, Simon?
I would say it's not that big. It's 20 years ago. It wasn't full. But, he was absolutely awesome. Just him, his guitar, his piano, his harmonica occasionally, of course, and some of the some of the greatest songs that you'll ever wish to hear. I loved Warren Zevon. He's so great, and he's been dead for like nearly 20 years, hasn't he? Yeah, wow. He was great. He didn't seem at his absolute peak even then. But just sat there, made some witty asides, played the hits. Job's a good one. I thoroughly approve.
Do you know many people ask me, when are you going to rank the albums of Warren Zevon? I'm like, I know one freaking song by Warren Zevon. I never heard anything else by him.
Really?
Yeah. I know. Epic fan.
Oh, and it looks like you're going back and not coming out again. I could help with that. Anyhow, all right. Yeah, let's move along, shall we? As I said, Charles the Elder, I started getting into. I'm going to use music at that point because in 2001. And I'm going to ignore the support acts until we lay into worst support acts.
Okay.
I'm going to ignore them for a while. I saw, and I'm proud to say what I saw.
Oh my goodness! Did that? I can say because I didn't go. Were those the words limp and biscuit? Oh, and that's not. And that's
should have kept that for the You've Seen Who, should I?
Wow.
However,
that's not on the You Saw Who show.
However, they were pretty entertaining.
Really?
Yeah. Well, at one point, no shit, you not. Come on, let's be adults about this, shall we? Well, for an actual arena show, and let's all note they're not playing arenas anymore in the UK. At one point, Fred Durst just popped up just in front of us, and we were about halfway down, and he kind of just popped up, floating around.
Did he not know they were meant to be on stage? No.
Was that a funny, Stephen? Was it? Okay.
Well, how did he pop up right in front of you then? How do you mean?
It was on some kind of weird hydraulic ship thing, and he was really close to us. They weren't as terrible as you might have thought, possibly because they didn't necessarily play that long.
Okay, that is a bonus.
Well, I'm happy to say I enjoyed them. No need to ever see them again, but I did enjoy them. So let's move along, shall we? 2001, November the 4th. No tickets yet, but I'm getting to that. I travelled to the dark side. I went to Sheffield Lead Mill, and I saw Nils Lofgren, not for the first time. However, I went with this guy called Barry, who I've practically not seen since. And again, not exactly heaving, but managed to get right to the very, very front. Right at the front. Just in front of, I'm going to call him Nils because I feel like he's my mate. Right in front of Nils' pedals and stuff, yeah. Oh, no. At one point when he did something, I touched his foot. I reached out and I touched his foot.
Can we clarify that and say you touched his shoe?
Yeah, his boot. I think it was a boot. It
so
wasn't
actually... Just like not
his actual foot. No, I don't. No, feet are weird.
No.
I don't have that fetish. No,
but you do have a hand fetish.
I no. Well, let me tell you, it was not the hand.
Did he have a smooth shoe?
He had a smooth shoe, and I just went.
That sounds even worse. How smooth were these shoes?
Pretty smooth, as I recall. But more importantly, he's such a good guitarist.
Yes. I've never seen him solo. I'm absolutely jealous of that. Really jealous of that.
I've seen him a few times.
Springsteen 3 times. Yeah. He's quite.
Sorry. No.
I've even seen him in Burnley. Yeah, there you go. How the mighty have fallen, eh? When you're playing Burnley Mechanics, boy, are you in the shit. But yeah, I've seen him there. He did his acoustic thing there, but he couldn't resist bringing the axe out, could he? No, he couldn't. No, he couldn't. He definitely brought it out at the end. Anyway, I'm a big fan, always have been, probably always will be. But the May 18th, 2002. Why are my tickets shit? Just saying. Touring the Mutter album. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Rammstein in a relatively shit. That's shit, isn't it? Just
I'll let you off with
a relatively small venue.
I've never seen Rammstein. That I need to fix at some point.
That was the first time I saw Rammstein. Just saying. Yeah, and clearly they couldn't fit all the pyro and columns and shit in that they wanted to, because they only had 3. And if you look at other dates around the time, they're like huge sets. You just couldn't fit them all in. But by God, when the pyro went off, it was hot. Jesus Christ, it was hot. But I consider Mutter to be one of the greatest albums in my collection, and they played shitloads of it, and that's a good thing. I'm pretty confident.
Yes, absolutely.
Pretty confident that American Head Charge were in support. That wasn't fun, but I don't intend to lay into them at a later date. No.
Okay. I don't mind them, actually. Never seen them live, to be fair.
Oh, I have.
They had their like 10 seconds of fame here, and that was about it.
Yeah. Because of our Benjamin's love of all things pop punk, I have never seen Jimmy Eats World, but I have seen Bowling for Soup about 38 times. I do like. There you go. And I do like them. I saw them several times around about that time, and I've just lost where I was going to. We had the time where we got broken into when some 41 when they did not steal my stuff. That happened round about this period. But I really do want to mention. Who do I want to mention? Good point. I saw Goldfinger around that point.
Goldfinger.
They have an excellent song called "Fuck Ted Nugent." I think we'd all enjoy that one. It's only about 52 seconds long, so you've got 23 minutes and 59 seconds of the day. Once you've done that, it's a classic.
Oh, I feel like I've missed out.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
But you know, sometimes like you go, your friends say, "Come and see this band. Come and see this band." I don't know why I did it in that accent, because that's not what he talks like. Apparently, I went to see fairly zeitgeisty at the time, the Datsuns.
Okay.
Yeah, don't remember anything about it, but I know that I did. But also, with the very same person, I went to see what was currently passing as the Misfits in Leeds Cockpit. Okay. And I say passing as the Misfits. It was Jerry Only, Marky Ramone in the Misfits, and Des Cadena from Black Flag. I feel like it's not the Misfits. Really,
no, not at all.
Not the Misfits, but nearly as entertaining as that glass.
Yeah. I think this glass might have been better, actually. That's very good.
Oh, there you go. And in 2003, I also saw Meatloaf for the final time in the Manchester Evening News Arena, and he was struggling at that point.
I was going to ask, could he sing at that stage?
He could just about get away with it at that point.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm pleased I never saw him again. And you can also be very, very confident, Peter, that I saw the Stranglers at least 5 times during this time period.
Wow, nice. Pretty cool.
Very good.
So, yeah, those would be the ones that I am prepared to fess up to that were I enjoyed.
Yeah, I actually saw Meatloaf a couple of years after that, and he did not sound good at all. His band was great, but he was like, I remember my wife was so excited to go see him because she'd never seen him before, and neither had I, to be honest. And we both walked out of there and were like, man, he can't sing anymore at all. But the band kicked ass. Let's see. All right, 2001. Geez. Well, I took my son to the Family Values Tour in East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Continental Arena, October 24th, 2001. I'm pretty sure that was System of a Down, Stained, and Linkin Park. Pretty sure that's who was on that bill. It's got to be because, yes, no, it was not. Because also, geez, a week after I took him to see the Pledge of Allegiance tour, which was Slipknot, System of a Down, and Static X. So this had to have been Linkin Park and Stained, I guess. Who am I missing here? Yeah, it must have been those two. Anyway, those two shows there. And not something I probably would have gone on my own, but he was 13 at the time, and he was like, oh, yeah, all into that kind of stuff. So I was like, all right. And
I'd rather have seen the second of the two.
What's that?
I'd rather have seen the second of those two shows. Not System of a Down.
They were both okay. I mean, it wasn't too bad. And then I took him to see Tantric, like literally 2 weeks after the last one. In New York City. So like literally in the span of like a couple of months, I took him to see Seven Dust, like just not long before that. And then in summer of 2002, I took him to Ozfest in New Jersey at PNC Bank Arts Center. And I've told the story here on the channel before. We're sitting there in the audience and there's women taking their top off in front of us. And he's like, he's a 13-year-old kid. And I'm like, don't tell your mother that you saw naked women at this show. And then as soon as we get home, Mom's like, so how was the concert? Mom, you should have seen all the naked boobs all over the place. I told you to shut up about that. I caught the Who in 2002, Madison Square Garden, a month after John Entwistle died, which, you know, we didn't even think the tour was going to happen. It was August 4th, 2002. And they announced they were going to continue on. And let me tell you something, I've seen the Who probably like 4 or 5 times. That was the best I ever saw them. It's almost like everything they did, they were playing for Entwistle, and they were loud, they were rocking in the place. They played everything you can want to hear. And I've seen them since then, not as good. I think that for me was the best I ever saw them. Really, really good. Let's see, on to, well, I got to mention this show only because it was such a good time. So the first time I ever saw Bruce Springsteen, speaking of Nils Lofgren, Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band, Giant Stadium, Friday, July 18, 2003. So, you know, this is, you know, year and a half after 9/11 here in New York. That's, you know, still really a big deal. Emotions are still running high. And Bruce comes out with The Rising, which was a huge album for him, big comeback album. I was really into it. I was never a huge Springsteen fan, but I always kind of liked him. But I really latched onto that album. And then my buddy was like, oh, you want to go catch him? I've never seen him. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And we spent at the time, and this was 2003, I think we spent like $275 a ticket, which then was a shitload of money for a concert ticket. Now you can spend that easily. And it was a Friday, so like we each took the day off from work. He worked in the city. I, you know, obviously work from home like I do now. And we met up during the day. We went out for Indian food. We had a lot of drinks. We took a bus from the city to Jersey. They had like a little carnival set up outside the stadium. We had a lot more drinks. We went inside. We had floor seats. We had a lot more drinks. The skies opened up. We had this torrential downpour, and we had a lot more drinks. And Bruce played for like 3.5 hours. Everything you wanted. The stage was covered, so they were safe. We were all completely drenched. Just, I don't think I ever had such a drunken fun time at a concert ever. And we then went to see him 3 times on that tour just because we had so much fun. Never felt the need to see him again after that. But it's like, you know, I think that he's one of those guys you got to go see at least once. And, you know, whether he puts on that same kind of show now, because this is like almost 20 years ago, I don't know. But it was really, really great. And let's see, I'll pick one more real quick here. Well, I might as well, at the time, this was a bucket list one. And, you know, we lost him, you know, a bunch of years later. But David Bowie at PNC Bank Arts Center down in New Jersey, June 5th, 2004. That was really cool. That was the reality tour, they called it. And I forget which album that was into, but, you know, that was great seeing him. Never seen him before, always been a fan. And, you know, that was kind of, at the time, that was kind of like a bucket list type of thing. So I still have some of those. You mentioned Peter Gabriel before. I've never seen Peter Gabriel. He's one of those guys. Yeah, he's one of those guys I still would love to see, but I mean, he doesn't tour that often anymore, right? So I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So that's my final pick for the day.
Well, from I was going to say not so memorable. That's not actually true, because these shows were memorable. I mean, I've shown the ticket. I spoke about it at length the other day. The Jimmy Eat World show, which was, shall we say, more eventful than I anticipated on my own. Covered it before at length, whatever show that was. They basically are moaning about gigs, our gig rant show. If you haven't seen that, you want to hear about Jimmy Eat World, my car getting set on fire, go watch that. So the two that I have brought in to mention, and I'll do them in reverse order in actual fact, rather than doing them in chronological order. On the 24th of November in 2002, we went to see Ryan Adams, not Brian, but Ryan Adams at the Edinburgh Usher Hall. And it was a one-man show, which was not really what we'd anticipated. It wasn't really billed as that. And let's just say we were in the Usher Hall is an older venue, very plush seats, all velvet seats, unless you're in the high up the back seats, because those ones are made of wood. Just really, you know, they are not very forgiving. And let's just say that the chap that was on stage was so not with it that he was as high as we were on these seats right at the back. Ryan Adams was on it in a completely different time zone from anybody else on the planet at that stage. He had come dressed very dapperly. He had a lovely suit on. And for whatever reason, there were balloons on stage. And Mr. Adams decided that the best thing that he could do in front of 2,000 people was to see how many balloons he could fit inside his buttoned-up suit. And I mean, he got about 12, but let's just say that most of them were burst. And he was having a great time. And everyone was kind of like going... And the between song banter, I mean, I don't even know what language he was talking at the time. But the thing is, once he actually played, you thought, that's quite tight, actually. One of those moments where you realise that the artist can rise above whatever's happening in their head and become something that they want to be during the music. As soon as the music ended, you had no idea whether there was going to be any banter, and he would just kind of stare at us all and start another one. Or if we were going to have 12 minutes of balloons and blethering and nonsense and wandering about, I think the show was about an hour longer than it was meant to be. We were thoroughly entertained. We still talk about that show now. I don't think we were always thoroughly entertained in the way that we anticipated, but we'll never forget it. It was remarkably bizarre, put it that way. I don't know if the rest of the tour went like that, but certainly our night went like that. So there you go. It was good fun, not what we thought it was going to be. But the other one that I've brought is, and you can see it, Simon saying not nice tickets, but all my tickets all looked roughly the same because it was just the promoter's fancy way of putting their ticket. So this is the 22nd of November 2000, and this is UFO. Okay. Now the UFO lineup for this show was, as you would expect, Phil Mogg, Pete Way is on bass. You have Michael Schenker, almost on guitar. You've got Jeff Martin on drums.
Oh, you saw one of these shows. Oh, okay.
And Luis Maldonado on keyboards. So you've kind of got 3/5 of UFO is what you've really got in real terms. But what you really had was you had the beginning of the end. That's what we saw. It was not as bizarre as what would follow. I had to go and Google all this earlier on today to make sure that, you know, some of those stories that you tell people and eventually you think, am I making this up? Did this really go down the way that it went down? Well, it would be fair to suggest that Mr. Schenker and Mr. Mogg were not getting on at this stage. They did not like each other. I mean, Schenker was a shambles. Thankfully, he's no longer a shambles. He was unkempt. I would go as far as to say he was reasonably unclean at this stage. From memory, he had something like bitch or slut or something written across his forehead in black pen, which was just visible above his black beanie at the time. And he clearly wanted to be anywhere but there. Now, this was at the stage where UFO could only play as UFO if Michael Schenker was in the band. So in other words, he owned the name. Whether it was worded like that wasn't true, because the rest of them wanted to be a UFO. If Schenker didn't, then UFO couldn't exist. Hence, we got Mogg Way and all of this kind of stuff. So all of the merchandise was Michael Schenker. There wasn't a single UFO shirt. There wasn't a UFO CD. There wasn't a UFO guitar pick. It was all Michael Schenker stuff. And if you wanted to have a meet and greet, you had to buy something on the night. And it was all these curio CDs like the Odd Trio, and where he's dressed up as women and things, and the booklet and all this kind of stuff. And it was a show where every time that Schenker and Mogg would get close, Pete Way would get in between them. He would literally force himself in between them and play bass like this, you know, facing Michael, kind of saying, hey, we're having a great time. Don't you go near him. Don't you go anywhere near him. Whatever happens, don't go near him. And I remember when the next day, one of my mates was like, so how was the UFO show last night? And I was like, well, it was a bit weird. Well, there's clearly lots of, you know, atmosphere and aggro on stage. And he was like, don't be stupid. You couldn't tell that from down in the audience watching it. Well, they got through the next night in Newcastle. There was talk of a fight and various things. That's been debunked, supposedly, that it wasn't between band members and various things. But by the time they got to the show after that in Manchester, Schenker did this with the shades to reveal a massive black eye underneath. And that was the show where he was halfway through songs where he'd be ready to play his solo, he'd take his guitar off and hand it to Phil Mogg as if to say, well, you fucking play it. You know, because this is your band, you think you're in charge and all this kind of stuff. And that was the night where he in between songs, he walked up to the main mic, he walked up to Phil's mic and went, "This guy sucks." And then he walked back to his own mic and went, "And I suck too."
That's really sad.
They never got,
really
and they never got through the whole show. They never finished it. I mean, the show that we saw in Glasgow, in my memory, it was the last full show he played. It wasn't. They did one more after that. The one in Newcastle got finished. I thought I'd seen the last show that Schenker fully played with a band, and I didn't. I saw the second last that he fully played. But we did get more songs than the other dates from the tour. So we clearly saw a good night, which is quite worrying considering what we saw. And he did a meet and greet afterwards. And man, oh man, did he neither want to meet nor greet anybody.
I'm sure.
So, as I say, if you bought merchandise, you could get it signed. And I remember my mate Neil saying to me, he says, "We're not sticking about for this, are we? After what we'd seen." And I said, "Oh yeah, we are. Absolutely we are. Let's see what happens. Let's see what's going to go on here." So we were in the Glasgow Barrowland, and it's the first time I've ever been in a venue that long, because they actually brought the table back into the venue, not a different room, and there are different rooms there they could have used. So we saw the entire lighting rig get taken apart and it all getting shipped out. And this is how long it took before Michael came back out to see the 20 or so people that decided to stick it out this length of time. And Michael Schenker did not look anybody in the face, not one single person. He did everything like this with a guy that was about 75 foot tall standing next to him, bigger than Huey Lewis. That's how big this guy was, standing next to him, basically going, "You don't get near Michael. You don't get near Michael." And he'd already announced he would not shake anyone's hand. And I couldn't help myself. Yeah, I mean, you know, I've paid to stand in this queue. I've not only have I paid for a ticket, I bought 3 CDs, most of which are shit, by the way, that, you know, that I'd bought only so he could sign them on the night, because at that stage you thought, I may never see this guy again. Thankfully I have, he's been very good. And he did touch my hand. I couldn't tell you if it's soft or hard, but I tell you what, it wanted to do that to me. That's what it wanted to do, you know? And the security guy was also like, whoa, you don't put the hand out, you don't put the hand out. But he did acknowledge me, but only because I don't know what. It was just one of the most odd live show events, occasions that I've ever witnessed in my life. To watch a band literally falling apart on stage was not pretty, but it's stuck in my mind, I have to say. It really has. I mean, I can remember like I was standing in the crowd watching it all. To genuinely watch a member of a respected outfit keeping his 2 bandmates apart on stage. And then and there are accounts out there, because I found them today, when you read what happened at the show 2 nights later, he wasn't quite so lucky. And when he was trying to get in between the 2 of them, Schenker started to hold his bass so he couldn't play it. Ridiculous, crazy.
You know what's humorous about this whole thing even more? The fact that Pete Way is the guy who is keeping them 2 separate.
Yeah.
Pete Way is probably a bigger mess than any of those guys, right? But that's crazy. Yeah. You know what? Absolutely. I hold the classic lineup in such high regard. They're one of my favorite bands, right? I never got to see them with Schenker. I don't think I would have wanted that to be my only memory. So I'm glad I didn't go see them when he came back for those bunch of years.
I saw them. It's funny because it's a, in inverted commas, funny memory now. You know, you look back at it and you go, wow, you know, and that was a thing. But I couldn't leave it there. When they came back round with Vinnie Moore, I went with the same guy who said, "Are you sure you want to go see this band again?" I said, "It's Vinnie Moore on guitar. The guy's outstanding. I know that Schenker's outstanding, but this guy's outstanding." And together, and thankfully that was the memory that I'll take away from UFO, is that the last time I saw them, they were brilliant.
They're very good with Vinnie. Yeah, very good live with Vinnie. I would agree. The studio stuff is okay, but the live, they really brought it. Yeah,
they really pulled it. And thankfully, I've seen Schenker since a couple of times, solo and in various configurations, and he's been absolutely fantastic. So I've got good memories of both post, but the only time that I saw Schenker with them, wow,
sounds like a nightmare.
Crazy,
no good.
And that's it. That's me.
All right, Simon, what do you got?
Well, firstly, I'm going to pad this out by saying, as a good thing, and you might think this is not a good thing, I did see the boy, and I think his friend, we did see the Murder Dolls in 2002, and somewhere, and I know I've still got it, I've got Joey Jordison's autograph. Yeah. Yeah. Just say, I know I've got it because I looked at it, put it back, and couldn't be asked to bring it down. However, mainly went to see them because I really like the Frankenstein drag queens from Planet 13. But hey, there you go, such is life. But right now, I'm going to point the finger this one here, I'm going to point. And, you know, I don't have any funny stories or anything. I was just absolutely bored shitless, utterly comatose by what I think was the first ever sit-down arena gig I ever went to. And that on the snappily titled Reunion Tour. And, you know, I'm just saying they're going back out again soon. Roxy Music.
Wow.
Yeah, I must admit that you've made my mind up, Simon, because I must admit I looked at the tickets and I've looked at the price of the tickets and I've worked out, is it worth seeing Dots on a stage for nearly £70 or paying more than that to be nearer? And I haven't bought tickets, and you have persuaded me that it's not a good idea.
Just so mannered and lacking in excitement and spontaneity and
See, it's funny because I've seen Brian Ferry a couple of times, not in recent years, but recent enough years. He could have featured in this show because he actually, I didn't see him because the support act played, and then his manager came out and went, Brian's not very well. You can all go home. But they did come back on the tour, to be fair. And little that was it. We got the support act, and then it was all bye. But they did come back about 8 months later and play. And the solo show was very mannered and very structured. It started off with him at the piano, and I think it was a 13-piece band, and every song would introduce another member of the band. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So I'm kind of shocked and disappointed to hear that the band themselves were so poor.
Well, other opinions are available. I'm sure they will be down below, but I was just over it. I mean, it could be because I was a long way back, but, you know, at no point did I think, wow, I need to stand up and clap my hands or do anything that might irritate the small people behind me. Just bored. I'm bored.
No, that's not so good.
It happens. It
does. I have nobody else to lay into over this period. Okay.
I don't really have any either, but I have one that I think sort of I could go to, but we can't really bust on Slayer now, can we? So no, we're not going to do that today. I'm going to call out Yes 35th anniversary tour at Madison Square Garden, Thursday, May 13, 2004. The reason why I'm going to call this was not that bad a show. However, any concert where Yes plays a reggae version of Roundabout needs to be kind of called out. I already by 2004 I acknowledge what a classic legendary song Roundabout is, but man, I've heard, because I've seen Yes a lot. The two bands I've seen the most in my life are Yes and Dream Theater. So I have seen them play Roundabout every single show. I grew up listening to Roundabout on the radio. I've listened to it on my own dime a million times. I'm just like, all right, Roundabout, yes, it's great, but and then they come out and they play like this kind of calypso reggae type of version of Roundabout. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Was not digging it. And that actually started a whole string, and I kept going to see them, obviously, a whole string of sometimes fairly mediocre concerts by Yes. I don't. Maybe it's because they're getting old. I mean, they had some good, but I saw them plenty of times after this, and some shows were pretty good, some were, and some were, but I start, at some point you start to see like when the cracks are starting to show, or maybe it was just age. I don't know. Maybe I just got to a point where I'm like, why do I keep I love this band, but I keep seeing them over and over and over again, and they're not quite like hitting the mark for me as much as they used to. But I kept going anyway. But needless to say, I've heard Roundabout enough, and I certainly don't ever want to hear Roundabout played reggae version ever again.
No, I have heard that version, not in person, but I've heard a live recorded version of that.
It's terrible, right?
It's about the worst thing that you could possibly ever put yourself through. It's outrageously bad. It's not even just self-indulgent. It's just turgid, awful. The best version of that song live that I've heard was actually John Anderson and Rick Wakeman, just the two of them. They toured, they played Perth, can't remember what year, be in the book somewhere. and they just played an evening of Yes music, basically, just the two of them. And that was great. The only time I've actually seen Yes was on the Magnification tour, where they came out with the orchestra. And that was really good fun. I must admit, we got back to the car and thought, that was good, but we'll never go see them again, will we? And we never have. We never have. And we only went to see Wakeman and Anderson because it was local. And it was good, to be fair. It was much better than I'd anticipated, but it was, a 15-minute walk just about. So we were kind of like, well, nothing ever plays here. Let's support it.
Gotta go, right? Yeah.
And they were good. But yeah, I love Yes. I don't feel the need to partake in them as a live act these days, I have to say. You can hate me in the comments if you want, but not for me now. Not for me at all.
I think the last time I saw them, which was right before the pandemic, I just didn't enjoy them at all. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm done. I still love them, but I just don't think they're just, I don't know. It just doesn't sound much like Yes to me anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing, both in studio and what I've heard of them live. That's what strikes me, is it doesn't particularly sound like Yes. There's nothing worse than watching a legendary act try to sound like themselves.
Yeah. And for me, and I won't say anything more after this, it has nothing to do with John Davison, the singer.
No.
Nothing to do with him, because I like him a lot.
I'll
leave it at that.
Yeah. Yes, we'll leave it there, but that's not where I'm aiming at either.
Yeah. So there you have it, everybody. Some more concert memories from the early 2000s. And I think we're going to come back next week with a little revisiting of another catalog of a very notable band. Have we decided, fellas? Should we pick it right here on the spot? We talked about them earlier. Do we want to go down another new wave of British heavy metal act? Do we want to do that?
I've been listening to Queen all the time.
Well, that's right. We did say that. Okay. All right. So
you're going out of sequence. Don't do that.
Sorry, I'm going out of sequence. All right.
Here we go.
I've been sick.
Yeah.
I'm allowed.
Next week we will be
Simon's ready to have a heart attack. He's like, wait a second. I've been listening to all the Queen. No, so we are doing Queen next week. We will circle back around with Saxon in a couple of weeks. So yeah.
And I'll tell you why I looked worried too, is because that's going to be the hardest show in the world ever.
Oh, Saxon?
Yeah. I mean, I'm no spoilers at all here. How do you choose a two least favourite in the Saxon discography? How do you do that? I don't know. I actually don't know.
Even the favourites are hard because there's a lot of
absolutely. Yeah, but everything we've done so far and the ones that we're looking at for the future, I can kind of go, yeah, maybe this one, maybe that one. I'm not so keen on this one. That was a bit of a low point. I look at the Saxon discography and go, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. That was different, but I love it. Yeah, that's great. The early stuff, brilliant. The latter day stuff, brilliant. The mid stuff, not what people wanted. It's brilliant.
Yep, I agree.
It's going to be good fun, though.
Yep. But Queen will be fun. So that's what you guys have coming next week. Our two favorite Queen albums, our two least favorite, and the one that kind of floats around in the middle of the wild card. So so that's coming up next week. So stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube. Simon, tell them.
All together, all the damn time.
That's right. That's right. Perfectly said. For Steven Reid and Simon Bray, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you next week on the UK Connection. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.